I just found out my wife cheated on me when we were dating. We have been married for 20 years, but I'm still filing for divorce. Am I right in doing so? My wife, 44F, and I, 43M, have been married 20 years, but already started dating in high school when I was a junior, and she was a senior. We were in a long-distance relationship for her first 2 years of college, while I was in high school, and did 1 year at community college. After that year, I changed to a college in the same city as her, and have lived together since. We got married the summer after I graduated college, and our marriage had been pretty great. But I initiated a divorce after I discovered that she was sleeping with multiple other men for the 2 years we were long distance. Just after Christmas, we got together with a few college friends of hers to catch up, have dinner, and hang out. We talked about a lot of stuff, and my wife mentioned that we met in high school. Not that we dated, just that we met. Her old college roommate told me that it was crazy that we met in high school. She had a few wild years in college, and then still ended up together. I played along and commented that I didn't know if my wife was as crazy as I was. The roommate started to tell a story, but my wife cut her off and said she was uncomfortable about it. I sensed something was up, so I told them that we actually started dating in high school and were together for my wife's entire time at college. This confession made all of the girls real quiet, and the rest of the dinner was pretty awkward. On the way out, one of her other roommates took me aside and advised me to have an honest conversation about what happened at college. I asked my wife on the way home, and she kind of blew me off. I told her it was important for her to be honest with me, but again she said it wasn't important. When we got home, I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what happened in college, and the next day she called me to come over. She invited me in and sat me down. I could immediately sense that there was something off. She admitted to sleeping with several other men during her first 2 years at college and said she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance. She also mentioned that she didn't think our high school romance would last. I pressed for more details, and she said it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys she introduced to me as friends when I came to visit on weekends, and 1 guy she was still in contact with. This revelation shocked me. I had never expected this from my wife, and I told her there and then that I wanted a divorce and would be starting the paperwork as soon as I could. In the days that passed, her family and most of my family reached out to me, telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes that happened more than 20 years ago. I've stood by my belief, however, and feel that cheating on me with multiple men for years is unacceptable no matter when it happened. The fact that she continued to maintain relationships, albeit friendly, with these guys was an unacceptable amount of disrespect. We have 2 children, they are 17 and 19, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I feel like I'm going crazy with the amount of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. Update 1. I have gotten a lot of questions and will try to answer most of them. The reason I shared my story is because my wife and a few friends have been saying to me that it's common to sleep with other folks when you're in a long-distance relationship. They think I'm kind of the odd one out for not sleeping around. I felt like I was being gaslit, but I wanted an outside perspective. We live in a state with a waiting period to finalize a divorce, so I felt it was a reasonable idea to get some insight before things are finalized. It is also not like we never saw each other. We saw each other 2 to 3 weekends a month, as I lived about 3 hours away from her college. It was a long distance, but nothing like across the country. There was never a moment where we went months without seeing each other. With regards to the guys, the 3 guys I met while she was in college were meetups that happened during parties. The subject of me being a boyfriend didn't really come up, so I honestly don't know if these guys knew anything. The 1 guy we're still in contact with married a mutual friend from college. This is not some guy she secretly messages on the side, and somebody we've talked to regularly for years. I've reached out to him a few times since my wife told me the truth, and he said he didn't know we were dating at the time and has since blocked my wife on social media. Some people also wondered how her roommates didn't realize any of this during our wedding. Well, the main reason is that my wife and I had a very small ceremony with just close family in Texas, then went back to the East Coast to have a big party with friends. The typical reception sharing details about how we met stuff didn't really happen, so her roommates didn't realize we started dating before college. It sounds like they thought we only dated for the year we were both in the same city, then moved in together. Some people also said to me that I was kind of quick on my idea for divorce. A few days after her revelations, I spoke to her again and told her that I was open to couples therapy or some kind of attempt to save the marriage. She insisted, however, that this whole thing is common and I'm the one who's out of line, and that is just too much for me. The only time she showed any remorse or even offered to reconcile is when I started filing paperwork. In the last week, she's gone back to saying she's right, and I'm overreacting. This is also why I'm feeling like I'm being gaslit. It seems obvious that this is a major issue, but I've got my wife and others telling me it's normal, and I'm overreacting. Now, I would also like to stress that we were definitely exclusively dating at the time. Dating culture was a lot different 20-ish years ago, and exclusive was kind of the default for most people. We had a long and difficult discussion before she left for college about continuing the relationship long distance, and she specifically wanted to stay together and even joked about her dad coming after me if I started sleeping around with girls at my school. At my senior prom, she was not able to attend and was very upset when I proposed going with a platonic female friend of mine, which resulted in me skipping my prom and hanging out with her instead. While we never said the word exclusive, I think the reasons I just mentioned, combined with the general relationship before she left, are enough to assume exclusivity. I think this addresses most of the questions that were asked and want to thank you all for the helpful responses, even those that disagree with me. I would still be open to therapy if she's willing, but I honestly feel like it would be more about us being successful co-parents and finding closure than saving our marriage. Update 2. I wanted to provide some more updates here, as my wife has agreed to couple counseling. First, let's talk about the things I learned about the situation in college. After talking to my wife in counseling sessions and texting with 2 of her roommates, it's clear that her roommates knew something was up in college. They said to me that, before the marriage, they already knew the situation was kind of weird and likely involved cheating. My wife had assured them, however, that we both had some wild times in college and we had worked it out before we got married, so they never really brought it up. The roommate who pulled me aside recently was uncomfortable with the fact that my wife clearly didn't talk it through with me and wanted me to know. As far as being introduced to guys she slept with, apparently that was never with bad intentions. Back when I used to visit her, she planned to hang out in the room or just hang out together alone. I often wanted to go to a few parties because I didn't really have parties to go to, and she didn't expect me to meet the guys. They were simply at these parties, and she felt she didn't really have a choice, so it's not that she intentionally made me meet the guys. Most of our discussion in therapy have been on the topic of why I think it's a big deal, and she doesn't. She initially said that none of these guys were in relationships with her, and it was mostly one-night stands. As she didn't view them as romantic relationships, she didn't see what the big issue was. I didn't agree with this, as it was my opinion that we never said that was okay, and she actively prevented me from doing the same. After digging into this across 2 sessions, my wife talked to some friends, and she now agrees that it was a breach of our trust and relationship. This is the shared understanding that has helped us talk about this situation more and helped us get from arguing to talking, which is why I'm optimistic about co-parenting. Now the sessions have not changed my mind of the idea of divorce, and here is why. Firstly, about 10 years ago, we went through a really rough patch and had a dead bedroom for about 2 years. She had expressed that our sex life was becoming boring, so I tried to spice things up. Nothing crazy, just roleplay and some gift-level sex toys. Now I found out that she had been hung up some sexual experiences that happened in college and wanted me to try them. But when I did it, it made her feel awkward and guilty that it made her think of the other men while she was with me. The fact that she's saying these experiences were meaningless but clearly impacted our marriage tells me they meant more to her than she wants to say. Second, she admitted that she has been flirting with coworkers on business trips since the pandemic ended. She claims that she has never slept with anybody, but it got as far as going on a date with one of her male coworkers. That was the absolute deal breaker for me. We have told our children that we're getting a divorce and told them it was due to some bad decisions that we made in college that we're having trouble moving past. My 19-year-old, who is in college, asked me if I cheated on my wife, which made her admit to the kids that she's the one who cheated. We agreed to not share any additional details with the kids, and I reinforced that both of us will be there for the kids, and that we are in therapy to help make sure we handle this in the best way for the family. I also told the kids that if they wanted to talk to either of us or a therapist about this whole ordeal, that we would fully support it. We've started talking to a mediator about how to proceed with the divorce, and unless things drastically change, we should be able to have an amicable divorce. We're both financially stable on our own, we have no major debts, and our kids are older, so custody isn't a major issue. This has been a shitty couple of months for me, but I'm doing okay now, and I honestly am grateful that so many people shared the same opinion as I did, as it validated some of my feelings, and also motivated me to go to counseling with my wife. Thanks once again, and take care.